Before we start the stories, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a nice comment that reflects you. I'm going to tell you a story that happened to me a few years ago. This story is real, not made up. Even today, I still can't explain what happened. I've never shared it publicly before, but maybe by telling it, I'll finally be able to sleep more peacefully at night. In 2018, I was in a small coastal town on the eastern shore of the United States. I won't mention the town's name, out of respect for a family involved in the story. But it was a quiet place, where people left their doors unlocked, and everyone knew each other's business. That summer, I had just broken up with my girlfriend, and needed to escape from everything. My cousin Jake suggested I spend some time in a seaside house owned by family friends. They weren't using it and agreed to let me stay there for a few weeks. It sounded like the perfect getaway, a small, beautiful house right by the ocean, quiet and peaceful. Just me and the sound of the waves. But before I left, Jake mentioned something offhand. "Oh, by the way, that house has a strange reputation. Locals say it's haunted. But don't worry, it's just small-town gossip." I laughed at the idea. I didn't believe in ghosts. I arrived on a Tuesday. The house was simple but cozy. 2 stories with creaky wooden stairs, old furniture, and walls covered with family photos. I noticed something odd. In every picture, there was the same little girl. Maybe 6 or 7 years old. She always had the same blank expression, and no one in the photos was smiling. It gave me an uneasy feeling, but I brushed it off. Maybe the family just didn't like smiling for the camera. The first few nights passed quietly. I would sit on the porch, have a drink, and listen to the waves. Everything was calm, but on the 4th night, things changed. I was lying in bed around midnight. The lights off, the windows open. Suddenly, I heard footsteps downstairs, slow, dragging feet across the floor. I froze, tried to convince myself it was just the wind. Old houses make strange noises, right? Then came the sound of a door creaking open, followed by soft, barefoot steps climbing the stairs. I sat up in bed, heart pounding. I called out, "Who's there?" But no reply. I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and carefully stepped into the hallway. Nothing. Every room was empty. Even the front door was locked. I tried to ignore it, but sleep didn't come easily that night. The next morning, I found something that made my blood run cold. On the bathroom mirror upstairs, written in what looked like a child's handwriting, was the word "hello." It hadn't been there before. I stood, staring at it. Maybe it was condensation, or an old message that had somehow reappeared. But the mirror was clean. No steam, nothing. Just the word "hello," as if someone had written it with their finger recently. I wiped it away, telling myself I was imagining things. But the events continued. Every night, around the same time, I heard footsteps. Floorboards creaking, whispers. Then came the sound of a little girl's laughter, faint but clear, echoing through the house, though I was the only one there. One night, as I was brushing my teeth, I saw something in the mirror behind me. For a single second, there was a little girl in the hallway, pale face, dark eyes, staring at me. I spun around, but nothing was there. The toothbrush slipped from my hand and clattered into the sink. I was shaking. I thought about leaving, but I didn't. Instead, I started asking questions. I went into town and asked locals about the house. Most people didn't want to talk. But finally, an old man in a small diner leaned over and said, "Something happened there years ago. A little girl drowned." Her parents said she wandered into the sea and never came back. But people here say she never left. I asked if he knew her name, but he just shook his head. That night, while sitting in the living room, I noticed one of the framed photos was slightly crooked. I got up to fix it, and behind the picture, carved into the wall, was a single word: Lily. I couldn't breathe. Was that her name? That same night, around 3 a.m., I woke to the sound of faint music, like a lullaby coming from downstairs. I crept down, heart racing, and saw a small music box turning on the coffee table. I had never seen it before. The moment I stepped into the room, it stopped playing. I sat, frozen on the couch, then suddenly heard a whisper directly behind me. "Do you want to play?" I spun around so fast I nearly fell, but no one was there. I ran upstairs, locked my bedroom door, and didn't sleep at all. The next morning, I packed my things. Before leaving, I walked down to the beach for one last look, and there she was, a little girl in a white dress, standing in the water up to her ankles, staring at me. I didn't move. She didn't move. For what felt like an eternity, we just looked at each other. Then I blinked, and she was gone. I left that day without saying goodbye, without looking back. A month later, Jake told me his friend's family had finally sold the house. The new owners tried renovating, but workers kept quitting, saying they felt like someone was always watching them. In the end, the house was demolished completely, but some locals still say they see her, a little girl in a white dress, standing at the water's edge, smiling, waiting. And sometimes, when the wind is just right, you can still hear the faint sound of a music box playing. This story is 100% true, and it happened in 2019. At that time, I was living in New Jersey. After a few tough months at work, I desperately needed a break. I wasn't looking for anything fancy, just peace, quiet, and the sound of the ocean. I found a coastal house through a private ad posted in a local Facebook group, not through a site like Airbnb. The pictures looked amazing, the price was reasonable, and the house was located on the edge of Cape May. It was an old-fashioned 2-story home with wooden floors, white walls, and a big glass door that opened directly to the sea. It seemed perfect, or at least I thought so. I arrived on Friday afternoon. The house looked exactly like the pictures. Quiet, peaceful, maybe too quiet. On the kitchen table, I found a note from the owner. It read, "Enjoy your stay. Please do not go upstairs. That area is closed off for a reason." I found it odd, but I assumed it was just storage or something. I wasn't planning on snooping anyway. All I wanted was to relax, watch the sea, and escape the noise. The first night passed without incident. I cooked dinner, watched the waves crash, and went to bed early. But around 3 a.m., I woke up to the sound of footsteps, not outside, from upstairs. Slow, deliberate steps. The floorboards creaked as if someone was walking carefully. I was supposed to be alone. I stayed frozen in bed, holding my breath, my heart pounding. I tried convincing myself it was just the house settling, Old houses make weird noises, right? Eventually, I drifted back to sleep. But that was just the beginning. The next morning, I woke up with an unsettling feeling, as if someone had been watching me. I ignored it, made some coffee, and went for a walk on the beach. But when I came back, I found the back door wide open. I was sure I had locked it. I even remembered checking it twice because of the wind, but now it was open, letting in a heavy, strange air. I shut it and locked it again, trying not to think too much about it. That night, things escalated. I was in bed around 10 p.m., scrolling on my phone. The house was completely silent when suddenly, knock, knock, knock. It wasn't the front door. The sound came from inside, from upstairs. 3 knocks on the floor, directly above me. I froze, staring at the ceiling. Then came the footsteps again, slow, dragging, moving across the floor above my room. I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and quietly stepped into the hallway. I stared at the ceiling, trying to stay calm. Then the footsteps stopped, right above me, as if someone knew I was standing there. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I called the owner and told her what I heard. She went silent for a few seconds, then said, "Please don't go upstairs. Just stay downstairs. You'll be fine." I asked her why, but she refused to explain. That's when I started digging. I searched the address online, combed through old news articles, anything I could find, and then I found it. In 1997, a woman named Eliza Moore lived in that house. She lived alone after her husband drowned in a boating accident. Neighbors said she was never the same after that. A year later, they began complaining about screams coming from the house at night. Police investigated, but found nothing unusual, until one day, Eliza simply vanished. No note, no suitcase, no body. The only things police found were an overturned chair in the upstairs room and long scratch marks on the inside of the door. They labeled it a missing person case. She was never seen again. That room, the one the owner warned me about, was Eliza's room. I should have left right then, but I didn't. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe I just didn't want to believe. That night was the worst of all. Around 1:30 a.m., I woke up, not from noise, but from a cold draft blowing directly onto my face. I opened my eyes and saw my bedroom door wide open. I was certain I had locked it. I sat up, and that's when I saw her. At the end of the hallway, near the stairs, stood a woman. Her skin was pale, her long black hair dripping wet, wearing a white dress soaked at the bottom, as if she had just walked out of the ocean. She wasn't looking at me. She was staring upstairs. Slowly, she raised her hand and pointed at the closed door. And then she vanished. The terror I felt in that moment is impossible to describe. I grabbed my bag, my keys, and bolted. I didn't even bother turning off the lights. I just ran. I drove all night, heart racing, barely able to breathe. I never looked back. I tried contacting the owner again. No answer. The Facebook post disappeared. The phone number was disconnected. The house and everything about it was gone. But I know what I saw. I know what I heard. And sometimes, when I close my eyes, I still hear it. Knock, 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 from the ceiling above me. That's the end of the story. Goodbye.